celebrating 49 years on the air. Award-winning Farmweek is a production of Mississippi State University Extension.
Today on Farm Weekend, on the farm encore, the catfish-farming Pentecost brothers make a tough living in the Delta. Plus, the economy is moving, but are tariffs keeping prices higher? In Southern Gardening, Eddie Smith says, "Gimmee Five." Well, kinda. And concluding this week's feature, the Pentecost brothers making more money, but spending more of it to stay afloat. Farm Week starts right now.
Hello, everyone. I'm Zach Ashmore.
And I'm Mike Russell. Thanks for being with us once again here on Farm Week. A packed show this week, but first an update on the trade situation, divided opinion on the impact of U.S. tariffs. Whether or not you agree with the strategy of using them as leverage around the world, prices remain the focus in most economic circles. Reporter Peter Tubbs has more.
While another round of tariffs was announced by the White House, the inflationary effects of previous tariffs have begun to appear. An announcement of a 30% tariff on imports from the European Union has leaders in Europe evaluating their options.
Practically, it prohibits the trade. So if you're talking about 30% or 30% plus, there will be a huge impact on trade. It will be almost impossible to continue the trading as we are used in a transatlantic relationship. And if you look at the impact this would have, so I have to say the transatlantic supply chains would be heavily affected on both sides of Atlantic.
The EU is America's largest business partner and the world's wealthiest trading bloc. A full tariff war with the United States would force the economic bloc to rethink its export-heavy economic strategy. And those who work with U.S. farmers know the value of having options for producers and their product.
U.S. agriculture is one of the most important exporting industries for the United States. And you look across the ag sector, whether it's in beef, whether it's in pork, soybeans, we are in, alfalfa, just throughout the system, throughout the United States, exports are a huge part of our market. So we absolutely need, strong trading relationships and strong market access.
Coalition members referenced a pivot to encouraging trade within the Eurozone and increasing trade with countries with friendlier trading policies. The U.S. and EU have maintained a generally cooperative trading relationship since the Union was formed in 1993. The U.S. import tariff on goods from the Union averaged 1.47%, while the EU's tariffs averaged 1.35%. Analysts suspect that companies that import goods have absorbed as much of the tariff taxes as their balance sheets will support and are now passing the tariff costs on to consumers. Under a 1962 law, the president can impose tariffs to counter a threat to national security or a trade imbalance. The Consumer Price Index rose 0.3% in June, bringing the year-on-year increase to 2.7%, an increase from the inflation number in May. Increases in food and energy led the rise. With new tariffs scheduled for August 1st, the rising inflation numbers may keep the Federal Reserve from changing interest rates at their July meeting.
This week, another encore from Season 2 of On the Farm, our Emmy-winning series on stress in agriculture. That stress is certainly a part of daily life for the two brothers you are about to meet. Ed and Ben Pentecost run a catfish farm in the Mississippi Delta. They carefully go to work knowing they could lose hundreds of thousands of dollars on any given day.
I'm Ed Pentecost from Dodgeville, Mississippi, and I'm a partner in Pentecost Brothers a catfish farm. We farm-raised catfish on 585 acres of water in Sunflower County.
We grew up on a row crop farm. Our dad raised rice and soybeans, so he retired in 1985, and Ed and I took over the farm, and we were raising rice, soybeans, and catfish.
Catfish was really taking off at the time, back in the early 80s. It was expanding very rapidly. We actually built 4 ponds that year. The next year we built 4 more. Then we waited a couple of years, built 4 more. It just expanded over time until we were eventually spending a lot more of our time and energy on the catfish than we were on the row crop.
But at that time, 95% of our income was coming from fish and about 5% from farm. And our time wasn't divided that way. Our time was more 50-50. So we went total fish starting in 1993.
Probably banged it.
We only need enough for 1 truck. So we only need enough for 1 truck. There are times where I've wondered whether it was a worthwhile life choice to choose the catfish business, because it's so demanding day in and day out.
Catfish farming is really tough, both physically as well as mentally and financially. In the United States, aquaculture is not a labor-heavy industry, it's more capital-oriented. So there is less number of people managing huge amounts of fish, so that makes it much more rigorous in their management aspects. So the owner or the manager has a lot more duties that is atypical in other aquaculture sectors.
Every day of the week, we start out by checking oxygen levels and cutting off the aerators that have been cut on during the night as the oxygen dropped.
Fish have to have oxygen just as people do. They get theirs out of the water like we get ours out of the air. The aerators float out in the pond, and they have a 10-horse motor, and they churn the water to put oxygen in the water. The finer the particles you can break the water, the more oxygen it can absorb. We try to keep the fish in real good shape overnight, because we don't get paid for any that arrive at the plant in bad condition. You know, they'll if they're dead or too weak. Sometimes weakness will cause red spots in the fish. When the truck gets here, we'll get out there with a boat and gather them up and tighten them up where we can dip them with our loader. We load anywhere from 500 to 1,500 pounds in the dip. On a bob truck, we usually load around 15,000 pounds. On a trailer, 25,000 pounds. It's something, like I said, we do at least twice a week, year round.
Market prices can be a challenge too. Right now we're experiencing the highest prices that we ever have. But even though the price of fish is higher than it's ever been, we're also paying more for feed than we ever have. It's highest prices ever. Where the cheapest formulas are well over $500 a ton. So that adds up quickly when you feed daily.
Feed is the biggest of all the financial input that you require. So feed appropriates close to about 45 to 50% of the total cost of the farming. A typical catfish farm may range from $4,500 to $10,000, $12,000 per acre. So that's the amount of money that you need to incur in a year per acre. So you can just imagine the amount of money that is required to run a business in its entirety.
We had one year that the price of feed went up at the same time we had an oversupply of fish, and the price of fish went down, where it cost us 25 cents a pound more to grow fish than we were receiving. At that time, fish were 85 cents a pound. So, you know, it's tough to come to work every day when you know you're losing 25 cents on every pound.
You cannot sacrifice or cull those fish just because the prices are low, right? You still have to sell them to recover that money that you've already put in, even though you're not making profit. And that's a very common thing. Cash flow problems can come in this kind of situation, you know. When you really need cash and you don't have it, you can't feed it. When you can't feed it, your fish won't grow. So your profit that was actually going to come in October or December time may not be fruitful. 2 to 3 years, you can go down from a very profitable operation to bankruptcy.
So basic market factors became a formidable risk for Ed and Ben Pentecost, but that's just the beginning. We'll have the conclusion of their story coming up a little later in the show.
In Southern Gardening this week, our showcase plants are known for their long blooming season, their vibrant color, their easy care, and their heat tolerance. But keeping it simple, Eddie Smith just says, "Gimmee Five."
As the host of Southern Gardening, I love getting to promote great plants for our gardens and landscapes. Today I'm in Poplarville looking at a series of plants that have really performed well this year. Treated as an annual here in our area, pentas are perfect for our summer and fall weather. The name pentas comes from Latin, which means 5, because each of its small flowers have 5 petals that resemble colorful stars. As a matter of fact, pentas are also known as Egyptian star clusters. These flowers bloom in clusters from spring until fall frost. You can expect up to 20 clusters of flowers on one plant at any given time, adding a vibrant splash of color to your garden. In addition to their beauty, pentas are also an attraction for butterflies and other pollinators. The butterfly series of pentas is one of my favorites. Butterfly white penta features classic white blooms that resemble bright stars. Butterfly orchid penta is a variety that features striking blooms that are typically a shade of pink or light purple color. Butterfly deep rose is another stunning variety that showcases deep, dark pink flowers with light pink eyes. Lastly, Butterfly LT lavender penta is a beautiful plant that produces clusters of lavender-colored flowers. Its unique color makes it a standout addition to any garden. Like other pentas, it also attracts beneficial insects and provides a rich nectar source summer through fall. Be sure to deadhead, as this will promote more flowering color throughout the year. I'm Eddie Smith, and I will see you next time on Southern Gardening.
We'll take a short break, but stick around. Coming up, we conclude part 2 of this week's episode of On the Farm.
We head back to Doddsville, Mississippi. Ed and Ben Pentecost, 2 hardworking brothers, have farmed catfish for 40 years. But now it's much harder to keep up with the high cost of running their fish farm.
And there's another frightening risk that comes with every sunset. Can they cope with the stress, or should they close down altogether?
The conclusion coming up on Farmweek.
believe in people and their hopes, their aspirations and their faith. I believe that education, of which extension work is an essential part, is basic in stimulating individual initiative, self-determination, and leadership. I believe that these are the keys to democracy, and that people, when given facts they understand, will act not only in their self-interest, but also in the interest of society. I believe in intellectual freedom to search for and present the truth without bias and with courteous tolerance towards the views of others. Because I believe these things, I am an extension professional.
I believe in people and their hopes, their aspirations, and their faith. I believe in my own work and in the opportunity I have to make my life useful to humanity. I believe that education is a lifelong process, and the greatest university is the home. That my success as a teacher is proportional to those qualities of mind and spirit that give me welcome entrance to the homes of the families that I serve. Because I believe these things, I am an extension professional.
This week in the markets, we talk row crops with the latest crop progress report and some thoughts from an expert. But first, the markets closed on an upswing with one exception. Let's take a look. The week's biggest gain, soybean oil up almost 2 cents, nearly a 3.5% increase from the previous week. The week's biggest loss, lean hogs, down over 90.5 cents. That's nearly a 13.5% decrease from the previous week. So, how did we get here and what do the experts say about it? Well, the recent crop progress report could shine a light on gains based on how this year's crop is going. But there's some rumblings that corn may be having trouble, and analyst Ted Seifert gives his thoughts on the matter. Here's Bella Bingham with the report, followed by Ted and his analysis.
In the 18 highest corn-producing states, silking, which is when the female parts of the plant form, at 56%. 2% lower than last year and the 4-year average. Dough stage, which is when the kernels accumulate starch and thicken, at 14%. Once again, 2% lower than last year, but 2% higher than the 4-year average. Condition looking pretty good, with 67% reporting good to excellent. In the 18 highest soybean-producing states, Mississippi included, blooming at 62%, 1% lower than this time last year and the 4-year average. Setting pods at 26%, once again 1% lower than this time last year and the 4-year average. Condition also positive, with 68% reporting good to excellent. In the 15 highest cotton-producing states, Mississippi also included, squaring, the forming of the flower buds, at 71%, 8% lower than this time last year and 4% lower than the 4-year average. Setting boll stage, which is when the fertilized flowers turn into bolls, at 33%, 7% lower than this time last year, but equal to the 4-year average. Condition improving, with 53% reporting good to excellent. Last report, it was 45%.
We don't have, pictures of terribly drought-stricken crops or super flooded crops. So what are we going to find? And we're going to find some pollination issues, which we find every year, by the way. And part of me is like, wow, okay, maybe this is something that's happening on a much bigger scale. I'm not really sure. I'm very curious to see what happens when I go out on crop tour in about a month and see what I see with my own eyes. But I also find it kind of funny that we are talking about pollination issues, but in the same breath, we're talking about a forecast 2 weeks from now causing pollination problems. So that is the most threatening short-term forecast we've seen since we started this growing season, but is not happening at a time where we're going through the thick of pollination. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's tough to tell. I feel like every year we find something, and you wonder if these pollination issues that you're seeing across social media is just this year's iteration of, oh, here's a problem.
And that's it for a deeper look into the markets. Mike?
Thanks, Zach. Now the conclusion of this week's On the Farm extended feature. Ed and Ben Pentecost understand the day-to-day market risks of farming catfish. Those risks are significant, but they're only part of the picture. We pick up with another kind of risk that comes up when the sun goes down.
And once you're in, and it's you have to keep going. You can't hold back. You have to grow fish and sell them. They're not like soybeans that you can put in a bin and store. You have to keep them alive and keep them fed, so the expense never stops. I guess our biggest stress was probably worrying about our fish living through the night every night. We have good help that are out here watching the fish, but there's always things that can go wrong. The biggest risk that we have is a power outage, because we don't have enough backup equipment to cover all of our ponds if we have a total power outage. In 2015, we experienced our worst night ever. Someone hit a power pole that took the town north and south of us out, and all of our power totally.
I was here by myself and with my night man. He called me about 8:30 at night, had an electrical outage. So I called the electric company. They tell me it'll be 3 hours.
And we already had every piece of equipment running. It was the kind of night that everything was already running before the power went out. We were all out here playing musical chairs with our tractor aerators, trying to keep fish alive. They pop up in one pond, we put an aerator in, get them back down, and then they'd pop up in the pond we pulled that aerator from. And we just moved around waiting on a repair that never came. We estimated that we lost over 300,000 pounds of fish that night. That's a level of stress that most people don't even have to face, but we've had things like that happen so many times that we keep, get over it and keep going.
I don't know what the end game will be, how we'll ever decide to get out of this business, or whether we'll sell the ponds or rent them out or convert them to row crop or whatever. I don't know what the best alternative is there, but at some point we'll probably have to consider that, and we hadn't got a game plan yet.
Do you ever feel kind of trapped?
Yeah. If we decided today that we're stopping, we're getting out, we'd be faced with how do we sell what inventory of fish we have. It usually takes a year to sell the amount of fish that we have in inventory now, and they may not all be big enough right now, so some will require some more feed. Well, if you keep feeding them, you keep checking oxygen, you keep all the same labor. You have to have the insurance, you have to have the financing, and everything to keep going till every fish can be sold. Then you have the ponds. and have to decide, what to do with those ponds. Are they going to be farmed, or are they going to, be rented to someone or sold to someone who's going to grow fish? Right now, it's easier just to keep going.
Ed and Ben kept their chins held high, but the stress was intense. Very important, if you or someone you know is in emotional crisis, call or text 988 anytime for confidential free crisis support. Well, next week, an episode from our award-winning series, The Hungriest State.
In this heart-rending episode, we meet the fisher folk. In years past, Mississippi's Gulf Coast was known for great fishing and shrimping. But a series of disasters, along with excessive rain, have decimated the fishing industry.
Fishermen are left wondering how they'll buy fuel for their boats, let alone pay their bills. The Hungriest State, that's next time on Farm Week.
Remember, if you missed a story, look for past episodes of Farm Week on our website at farmweek.tv.
And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and YouTube. See you next week. Thanks for watching.